Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode. Are you thinking about quitting right now? Are you really struggling? Are you kind of in that valley and just really not sure where to go? Well, today we're just going to give you some encouragement today and really kind of help you lift out of that valley and reach that top of that hill. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
I was going to say good to see you guys, but not really.
We're still awkward with welcoming
beginnings,
all this stuff. Yeah.
So this week, it's been this week and the past couple of weeks, actually, we have heard from a lot of particularly creative business owners who are really considering quitting and shutting down their business right now.
Yeah, even some that already
and some
have
actually
shut down.
have made that decision. Exactly. And it's been hard to hear that as people who are really, encouraging people to jump into their creativity and their business and stuff like that. It's been really hard to hear. Some people, again, it's not to discredit. Sometimes there is a time to shut down your business, and I don't want to negate that.
Yeah.
But we have also been at the point a lot where we have thought about shutting down our business. And if we hadn't kept going, we wouldn't be in the different stages or wouldn't have then had the opportunities come up.
Yeah.
And so, we thought we would chat about that a little bit and just hopefully provide some encouragement, provide some things, it's basically just trying to encourage you if you are there.
Yeah,
because
we've been there.
Exactly. And COVID has been hard. COVID, it's weird for some people. Obviously, as we all know, we've heard the stories. For some people, COVID has made their business boom. Right. And for some people, it stayed the same. It really hasn't grown. That's kind of been for us. It just kind of was the same where we were hoping to have a high growth year the past year. And 2020 proved to just be, we did have an upswing in the time of the year that we normally wouldn't have had. And we thought, this is amazing.
Right.
Weren't expecting this. And then it tapered off from there. And so it's not like last year clearly did not follow the same rhythms we're used to in business and that kind of thing. So it's extremely hard to then when we planned for this year predict anything or know what the rhythms were going to be, because the rhythms are kind of gone. They're thrown out the window.
Like we were saying, a lot of the conversations that we're having with other creative business owners is like because of COVID and the uncertainty of the year, they just aren't able to keep going in some ways. And I think I don't know. It's hard to see that because again, it wasn't a year that anyone thought of or ever thought that would ever happen.
No.
And it's what it has done to others. There are positives though as well. Like we're seeing, like Maya said, some businesses are thriving. Some people are rediscovering things as well during COVID and all that kind of stuff. And so I think, it's just such a mixed bag of feelings and all the ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. And so,
And what this past year has done for so many is it has made us, we had to stop everything, right? And so it made us stop and it made us reflect and made us think, like, what do we want our lives to look like? Right. Like we talk about in our figuring out your priorities and stuff like that. A lot of us we've been forced to do that. Yeah. And so I do think a couple people we've talked to and heard from that as actually they've decided their priority isn't their business. And so I do get that. Definitely. Like that wasn't something that actually ended up being a priority for them. There were other things in their life that ended up being that priority.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I
awesome.
Get you. If that is you, I totally understand that. And I definitely honor you in that. I think we are probably talking here more to the people that are on like that edge, that they're like, I can't do this anymore. This is frustrating. I'm not like where I want to be, all of that kind of thing.
Right.
And I think, what I said to one person recently when they said, I'm just not where I want to be. I thought I would be, at this certain place by this time. And I said, I think we're always going to feel that way. Like, even when, like Pat and I have some big goals with our business and stuff like that. Even when we get to that, whatever that is, that threshold, that goal, we're probably going to look at it and just say, oh, but we're not to this next one yet.
Right. I mean, once you get to that one peak, right, you're going to look at the next one, and halfway up to that initial peak, you're going to see that new one, and you're going to be like, ooh, I can't wait to get to there.
Yes.
So I think it's just, I think it's a natural tendency
It
as
is.
you're growing your business.
And I will continue to say this over and over again. It's because of the world that we live in now. You look at other people and you can see, when I say you can see other people's lives, you're just seeing what they're choosing to post. And so you see other companies maybe right now and businesses like shipping thousands of things out a week and that kind of thing and all that. And again, I think I said it before, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You have no clue if they're making a profit, if they're, are they running wild and crazy? Like, what is going on behind the scenes in their family life and their marriage and with friends, we don't know all of that because, some people do post about that. Most people don't. So we're just seeing the best of the worlds of those people. And then you think, well, I'm not there. Yeah. I'm not doing that. I'm not, most businesses, creative businesses are pretty strategic in how they post and what they're putting out there, as well as a lot of people are for their personal posts too. And frankly, we try to be as real as we possibly can, but there's also stuff that is for us to keep private and is important for our kids and our family and us. That doesn't need to be out in the world everywhere. We always want to be as vulnerable as we possibly can.
And, real, authentic.
Exactly. But at the same time, we have to also, we're not in a world for everyone to know everything.
Right. Yeah. Well,
our inner circle, of course.
I feel like in some ways I don't want our kids to look back and go, gosh, I can't believe you just shared that when I was this age, and
true.
Now everyone knows about this about me, and all this kind of so I think I want to be really cautious on some of that stuff. Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're watching other people and what they're posting and stuff like that. And I fall in this trap too. There's somebody that I really love her work, and she does cards and prints and stuff like that, and she does a lot of wholesale orders and has her stuff, I think, in Anthropologie and all this kind of things. And she posted a recap of her 2020, and her business absolutely boomed in 2020. The amount of sales she had, she had all these numbers, and I looked at it and was like, well, what did we do wrong? And that's just not our story right now. That wasn't our story for 2020. It has been in past years, but that wasn't our story for 2020 for some reason. And just trusting in that and knowing that, I think it all comes back to, you'll hear us harp on this over and over again. It all comes back to what is the purpose behind what you're doing? Mm-hmm. Why? What is your why? And if that is something that you are, it should be, it's not if, but it should be something you're really, really, it aligns with things in your personal life, all that stuff like that, that keeps you going when you have times that you're like, it's kind of not the best year that I was hoping for.
Yeah, in the times that are really, really difficult, as if you are understanding that purpose, you understand your why, it's still going to make you get out of bed and keep pushing forward. I know at least that's the case for us, right? We've had multiple ups and downs and sideways turns and all that kind of stuff. But because of us understanding our why behind everything that we're trying to do, it helps us keep moving forward. It helps us take that next step.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Instead of going, oh, well, we didn't make that giant leap this year, but we actually did make that little step. So we're still moving forward. It might not have been what we completely envisioned, but because our understanding of our why, of our purpose, and we kept moving forward and taking those little steps, it's still a win. It's still a win. It's not a complete failure in some ways. So,
no, I don't look at that. I actually kind of am like, wow, we kept our business. We did grow it just a touch. Not, like I said, it wasn't anything to be like, whoa, we really had growth last year. Mm-hmm. But with that, to say, we did that in a pandemic. We should be thankful for that and that kind of thing. And so I think sometimes it's looking at, what are the wins you have had? And okay, great. Don't discredit the wins that you have had in it. And a couple of people I talked to, some things that have been causing them to want to shut down their businesses or be like, I'm done. It could be something like the sales have been low. Mm-hmm. It could be, it's too much work and I'm not, seeing the return on the investment kind of thing of the investment of my time and that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's that like just life circumstances have happened. Some of those are like, yes, like it's time to at least pause or shut down your business for now because of those things. Some of the other ones are just life. Like that just happens. Like the world around us doesn't care that we have a business we need to run. Like there's often things that happen, and that gets really frustrating and that kind of stuff. And so sometimes it's, I hate to say, but it's just being resilient in that. Persevering. Yeah. And that's part of having a business. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that because you own your own business, you avoid all the pitfalls and the things that happen for everyone else who has a business and you might work for them. We have the same things that end up happening. So yeah, it is a bunch of perseverance, reminding things. And then sometimes it's like, okay, this isn't working. It's really hard to gauge your business again on the past year, but we are moving into new things and like the world is going to look different and is looking different coming out of this. And so if you are seeing an area of your business that is struggling and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to quit because that's not working. Well, think of new things. Think of some new ideas. Like we had, the opportunity to start a course on finding your purpose and everything last year. And when I say opportunity, we had the idea for a while. But when we realized, people are actually looking for this now and really seeking this out as they're thinking through things, we literally sometimes you put some other things aside and we were like, well, we'll be maintaining things like as we get orders and stuff, we'll maintain that stuff, but we're not going to focus on some of that stuff right now. And we stopped everything. And within 2 weeks, we were able to get the course put together and up and ready for people. And so sometimes it's just, if you have this other idea, we'll dig into it because it may be something that, is being pushed in front of you for a reason. Yeah. And we have fun doing it too.
Right.
And it ended up being super helpful, for our business.
I think in some ways it was just a really good reminder for us of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
why we continue to move forward and take those steps. It was a good reminder to go through that again. And, in a sense, because we've done it for so long that it's just like, oh yeah, like this is why we're doing it. Like, and this is why on those hard days we keep going and keep moving forward. So yeah.
And this is going to sound cheesy, but
it's all cheese.
It's all, well, kind of, but I did tell another person too. I said, write out a list of the pros and cons of having your business and not having your business, because she was considering like just going and working for somebody else and that kind of stuff. And she did say once I did that, there was tons more pros, and I realized I just need to like stick with it. I got to get through this period, because you are going, again, no matter where your business goes, whether, you're just starting out and you're just trying to get to your first $100 or 100 pounds, or you are, like you've been making, I don't know, like $30,000 a year, and you want to get to that $100,000 mark, or, just keep going. Like you have a goal of getting to $1 million or something like that, and you're not there yet. Each of those things is going to come up with, it's like, taking a car over a ton of hills or something like that. You're going to dip down into the valleys where it's really, really hard, and you're going to have those high highs on the top of it. And then you're going to go back down. It really is like that.
Well, and in those valleys, it's really hard to see anything, right? It's really hard to see like what is coming up, once you get up to that next hill, right? Like, but then when you get to the top, you're like, oh yeah, like
that was what the work was. But it's so much work going up the hill.
Exactly.
And then you kind of coast a little bit down, and you're like, oh, and then suddenly you hit the, and having been in business for 14 years, I have no better way to describe it than that. Like it's just a lot of highs and a lot of valleys and a little lows and that kind of stuff. And again, to have that purpose behind it keeps you going on those times when you are in the valley, and keeps you going sometimes when you're on the high too. Sometimes it weirdly can like derail you, that you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? When you have success in something too, sometimes it strangely can like just mess with you a little bit. Like, do I deserve this? That kind of stuff. You go down a weird, trail of that. But yeah, it's just, we really wanted to just kind of make a shorter bit of a podcast, because we didn't talk a lot, but of just really encouraging you that if you are there, take time to just reflect and like, why did you start your business? Like, do you understand your purpose behind it? Maybe you need to look at that, and that will help you provide a fuel back into your business. And I think for us, again, there's been many times where each of us has said we'll just go get a quote unquote like regular job and work for somebody else. But then when we have sat down and like thought through what that would actually look like and things like that, we realized, oh, I think we need to really stick with this hard stuff right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think reflecting on some of that stuff, like, Mine, I always ask ourselves, like, what is giving you life right now? And I think, thinking about some of that stuff and the pros and cons and all that kind of stuff, like, that would be a real struggle for both of us, like, because of our why, because of the purpose that we've unearthed over these years and the things that, keep us moving forward. If that had to be derailed in some way, I think, yeah, it would just be really difficult. Even if it's extremely hard, as we're continuing to take those steps, I think we've found that as you push through those things, right after you push through the hard, there's so much learning that can happen in those moments and things like that. Obviously, it's easy for us to say, and for anyone to say once you're getting through it, oh, well, it was hard, but look at this amazing thing that's happening and all that kind of stuff. I think it's easy to say it when you're in the amazing. But when you're in the hard, it's really difficult to see some of that stuff. But I think just be reminded that, even when it's hard, there are good things. What do they say? Like, when I can't remember the phrase, but it's like, when there's rain, after it, there's a rainbow or something like that. I don't know.
Phrase, yeah.
That's really cheese, but, I think, yeah, we just would want to encourage you to keep pushing forward, persevere.
And I should say there is the caveat of like, and we've been there, that finances can become an issue.
Yeah,
so if your business is not bringing in what you need it to for your family to survive and stuff like that, like that's a legit thing to consider. And we've done this. How far can I stick with this before I need to, it may not be that you quit your business, but it may be I need to go find something part-time while I'm working on this part of my business, and that kind of thing. Like what is my threshold, I guess, is a really good place to think about. Again, that doesn't necessarily, because I've seen a lot of people do this, and we have done this, where we did meet our threshold and we realized, okay, one of us needs to do something else, or both of us needs to do something else for a bit, or seek a different kind of work maybe for a little bit, whether that was freelance for you, a different kind of freelance, or those kind of things that we need to seek out something else for a bit for income while we're working on this part of our business. That is, I understand that, and that is an extreme. Sometimes we've set that threshold and then it's been the next month, and we've realized like our business grew in the month because we were so determined not to get to that threshold. It's interesting when you kind of set that, sometimes it actually gives you even more motivation to like really focus in. So that has actually been more often what has happened. We've said, oh, but if we get to this point, like we're going to have to figure something out. This is going to have to look drastically different. And it just gives you some, I don't know, I can't even describe it, because it just gives you some kind of internal thing that like, actually, I don't want to get to that point. I really do love this. Yeah. And that's the case. But then there are plenty of times where we have had to start doing some other different work, or like look for a contract or something like that for a season. But that also then has usually given us the motivation to like pay really close attention to our time and how we spend it, and then what we want to focus on in our business to make sure that we are still moving it forward. But we may have had to do something for a bit that was a difficult financial time as well.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how, like, this person asked, should I, quit this amazing career that I have to follow my passion of art and all this kind of stuff. And they had mentioned about like, things are changing, like how we do business and work and employment and all that kind of stuff is changing. And one of their suggestions was like, why don't you, for your current employer, maybe like say, can I go down to 3 days? And then those other 2 days,
yes, that's so true. That's the thing right now.
Push into this passion, this gifting, this thing, this purpose that you're starting to unearth, maybe do that for 2 days, so I think there's options. There's things that you can, do if you are feeling a little stuck, or if you're feeling like things aren't going the way you thought. There are learnings that you can gather from that this season, but also think, be creative in the sense of what is your next step? Like, don't feel like, oh, well, I guess this isn't working, so I'm just going to shut it down completely and then go back to what I used to do or whatever. Like, there might be some creative options and things and ways that you could, you know, think of employment in a different way, if that makes any sense. You know, like Maya was saying, like sometimes we took on roles or positions or things for a season in order to like keep things moving, you know?
Exactly. And you don't,
So-
I think often we see people are like, oh, you know, the whole overnight success thing, or like they've gone from zero to like this. And a lot of times when you dig into that other part of the story, you realize like, oh, they did have a part-time job for a while, or those kind of, like, I mean, for me, I stopped my full-time job and I did have a part-time job for a year before I went full-time in my photography business and that kind of thing. And then there are other times where, you know, you're forced into something sometimes a little bit, or forced to look at it differently.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing I hear a lot of creative business owners when they're thinking about shutting things down is they say, I just want something that's more stable. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like I think maybe this isn't as much of a thing now after COVID.
True.
But there is no such thing as stable, because at any moment you could lose your job. And that's horrible to say. And I don't want to be doomsday person, but like, that's happened to you.
Nothing's definite.
No,
right?
nothing is definite. At any moment, things can change. And I mean, we've seen that so much this past year, where the rug was pulled out underneath us. And for a lot of us, that meant like if you had a job that you've had for years and you thought it was stable, suddenly it wasn't, or you may have possibly lost it. So I think it's the same thing. It's no different than when you have your own business. It's not going to, I mean, yes, like it could, you know, provide stability and stuff like that, but there's always going to be a chance that something can rock the boat and it really changes things. And that's when the businesses who succeed, they preserve, that's not the right word, persevere. Why can't I? There we go. I can say it. They persevere through it, and they switch up things, and they look, and you know, we can think of lots of big businesses that have done that, and then how they've succeeded on the other side of it, or how they started off as one thing and they shifted, and you learn as you go. So I think that's just an encouragement too. If you're like, oh, but I just need something that's more stable. I mean, there's not a lot of industries out there that are quote unquote stable. That there's nothing that's a guarantee, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's not to be. It sounds so bad. But there's no guarantee in anything, unfortunately. And that is the hard thing. And that is what it is to be in business, and to stick with it is to be able to be okay with the fact that there's just so many unknowns. But that's what life is and everything.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we just throw in the towel with everything in our life if there's all kinds of unknowns or things aren't going exactly the way we want them to and stuff like that. So it's a good way to sometimes view your business that way too. And please do, I mean, I'm bringing this forward and wanted to chat about this because we have seen and have had so many people reach out to us and what they're considering and stuff like that, that we just thought, we'll put this out there so we can direct people to this. But we'd love to hear from you. Like, are you in that spot right now where you're just done and you're looking for encouragement and stuff like that? We'd love to hear from you and encourage you and everything too. Or maybe you're in the spot where you're trying to shift things a lot in your business, and you're in that weird, and I feel like we are a little bit there right now. We are trying to shift some focus and stuff like that in our business, but it means this in-between spot right now. It's just not the most fun. Is that okay to say?
It's just, yeah.
It's a weird place.
It's kind of like,
Yeah, like I get up in the morning, I know my purpose, and I'm thankful we have that right now, because some of the stuff I'm working on is not my favorite things right now. It's stuff that I need to do currently, and stuff like that. But I'm building things for the future. And sometimes when you're in that in between, that is very. I feel like right now we're on that hill, climbing somewhere on it, and I can envision the top part, but we just haven't quite got there yet. And that is a hard spot to be to, because it's a lot of hard work in that part when you're going up the hill to get to that next thing that is for you and your business. So So we are sending lots of encouragement out to you.
Yeah.
And it's stick with it.
Stick with it. Go back to your purpose.
Yes.
Be reminded of that purpose every day. Definitely. And if you have questions about trying to understand what your purpose is, like, definitely reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about that.
Oh, for sure. So we're sending you an encouragement hug through this podcast. COVID safe, of course. And just sending you lots of love and everything and encouragement if you're in that valley or climbing that hill and it's very difficult right now. You can do it. You can stick with it. You've got it. Exactly. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.